Hey guys. Well, we've got an interview today, and he wants to stay a little bit anonymous, so he'll be on here in just a moment. And the reason I wanted to interview him was a lot of you guys have asked me in the past, how can I live full time in the Philippines if I don't have a pension coming in yet? So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on here on the screen. And can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, let's start with how long have you been in the Philippines? When did you decide to move here, or when did you actually move here full time?
I arrived on September 5th, 2022. So we're looking at just over a year.
Oh, okay. And now, where did you try out a couple of different islands, or what's been your experience there?
I did a tremendous amount of research before I came. I had been to the Philippines 4 times pre-COVID, only for like a couple weeks at a time, and I'd always gone to Cebu. Cebu was an option, but, and I'll get into this more later, but I have an online job that really requires me to have a good, solid internet connection and not a bunch of brownouts. So I was really concerned about the infrastructure of where I was living. And so, you know, the IT park area in Cebu was an option. Makati and Manila was an option, but neither of those are really my flavor. So CDO, which is Cagayan de Oro in Mindanao, that kept coming up as a top 10 place to retire. And one thing they're known for is their power grid very rarely goes down, and their internet's really solid. And I also wanted to try something new. I wanted to go somewhere I'd never been, somewhere where I didn't know anybody, and it looked like a beautiful place. I like the mountains. It's got mountains. So I decided on Cagayan de Oro. So I flew into Cebu September 4th, stayed one night, and then took a flight from Cebu to Cagayan de Oro the next day, September 5th, and arrived at the airport. And the Airbnb host where I was staying for the first month, I paid them to come get me from the airport and take me to my Airbnb. And there I was, new adventure, new place. I'll never forget it.
And that's a good kind of little travel tip for people. Often they get here and say they want to get to their Airbnb. Now you can get a taxi and you can use Grab, but if they're willing to do that, you know, then it makes it all that much easier. You're living here full time, but you're not yet over 62, retirement age. So what was the solution you found for that?
So I'm 48, and I after going through a nasty divorce a few years ago, I don't have early retirement funds, so I had to work. So what I did, and this is what I would recommend to anybody, I worked within my skill set. So look at what your skill set is and then ask yourself, how can I do this online? So I had a car part business online for 12 years, but that required me to physically be in the States, you know, doing what I did. But I had a track record, a provable track record. So I basically got a job in the automotive space. So I'm kind of like automotive tech, and it's all online. So I got this job. I got it on Indeed.com. That's the best site. I mean, there's Flex, there's some other sites. You can go to LinkedIn and look for jobs, but Indeed is the place where all the action's really happening. So I made a really strong cover letter, basically outlining what I had done in my business, the proof, and said, I'll do this for you if you hire me. And I was getting a lot of offers from insurance companies, and I settled on, I work for a really large driving training school, and I'm basically a fleet manager, and it's all online. So I sold my house, I sold my business to a relative, I sold most of my possessions, and moved back in with my parents, which I don't necessarily recommend, for about 9 months. And I just made sure that this job was going to be okay. I wanted to make sure they liked me. I wanted to make sure I liked them. And I settled in really well to the job, ended up just loving it. And then when I got hired, now this is the thing, if you're looking for a remote job, you've got to make sure that it's really remote, because a lot of the jobs I looked at, they would say something like remote, but that meant they're going to send you all over their area and maybe Texas or whatever it is. You've got to make sure that's truly remote. So when I got hired, I said, so anywhere I have an internet connection, I can work, right? And they said yes. So I I didn't say I wanted to go to the Philippines at first. I just kind of felt it out because you want to make them love you before you go asking for favors. So I did that. I gave it my all. I still do. And after about 3 months, I said to my manager, hey, you said anywhere, right? She said, yeah. And I said, well, I actually want to go to the Philippines for a while. Now, don't say I want to move there. Say I want to go there for a while, which could mean forever. So basically, I'm a W-2 employee, and I still use my parents' address. I'm still basically an employee as if I live in the United States working remotely, and I'm on vacation for an undisclosed amount of time. That's kind of how I present it. Because what my employer said is, well, we're not set up to hire overseas workers. And I said, well, I'm not. I'm still a Michigan W-2 employee, just like you hired me. I still maintain bank accounts. I still have an address there. And they said, okay, we'll do it. Now, I was very mindful that they're not going to want to hear excuses about brownouts and internet outages. So that's why I choose Cagayan de Oro at first until I could kind of get my bearings. I usually at any given time have 3 internet options. I've got the one provided in my place right now. I've got my own prepaid internet, and then I've got an actual phone plan that I can hotspot my laptop off from if I need to. Mm-hmm. That's kind of just an overview of what I did. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of thought to pull something like this off, but it's doable, and I did it.
I think one of the key things that you mentioned there, and this is super important to anybody listening, is if you plan on working online in order to support yourself going into the Philippines full time, don't set up the job like for February and then move to the Philippines 2 weeks later. You want to know that it's proven, because you may work for the company and they may just say, hey, this isn't working out, and now you're on a scramble, a survival mode to get another job. So you want to, I would say, do 2 things. Do like you did, which is work the job, 3 months or so and build up some savings, but also just make sure this is a legit job you can count on, because your whole survival overseas pretty much counts on it. Now, you mentioned also it's important if you're going to work online, you need to move somewhere that's going to have not so many brownouts, good internet available. Now that you've moved from Cagayan de Oro, what have you done to compensate now that you're living in a place that does have brownouts?
Yeah, so what I did when I was in Cagayan de Oro, I bought a power bank. It's a little bit bigger than the battery that would go in a car, but it's not that heavy. And that can probably run a laptop and my prepaid internet box for probably 2 days if I had to. I've had to use that a few times too. Now, I should run my laptops and my Wi-Fi right through it and then leave it plugged in. So if I lose power, it's just seamless. I haven't done that, but that's something I could do. So it was Ace Hardware. This thing was about 34,000 pesos. So yeah, $607. For me, it's a cost of doing business. I mean, I cannot risk going down, because if I start telling my employer a bunch of excuses, they're going to say, well, this isn't working out. You need to come back to the States. So I moved to Taois, Bohol, which is on Panglao Island between Panglao and Tagbilaran. And this is definitely not as stable as Cagayan de Oro as far as internet and power. In my area, it's kind of the worst, and I'm actually moving from this area partly because of that. I'm getting probably 4 to 5 brownouts a week that are not scheduled, that I don't see coming, that are going to be anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. It's really annoying, because what has happened is when that happens, I'm not getting very good internet service, because whatever's powering the internet in the area is also going down. So I'm actually moving to a little bit more stable area that's actually not real far from here, and they have a fiber optic internet that's included in my rent, and then also I'm considering Starlink. So ideally, what I'm going to have soon at my new place, and this is kind of like the golden setup if you're going to be in an area that's kind of unstable. When I'm done really setting up, because I'm going to be renting a home that's just kind of like a dream home for me. It's really beautiful. So I'm going to invest a little bit more time and thought into that setup setup. So what I'm going to have for internet, PLDT is included. Then I'm going to have my backup, which a lot of the viewers won't really know what I'm talking about, but I put a GoMo card for a mobile phone and a Globe prepaid home internet box. I learned that from a local that told me that's kind of the way to go. So I'm going to have, you know, the included fiber optic PLPD. Then I'm going to have my backup, which is about $18 a month. Then I have a phone plan. So what I did is while I was at this place, I actually sent a video to you, and I did it through my data, and I watched just how fast that video went through. I was pretty happy with it. And then I might still do Starlink. Now, Starlink in the Philippines is about half price from the US. It's roughly about $50 a month. I've heard anything from 100 to 120 in the States. I've heard some people say it's wonderful. I've heard some people say if you're deep in the province, it's iffy. So that's what I'll do for internet. Now for power, I've got my power box, but I'm still a little bit freaked out about if we had a typhoon rip here, you know, that would go through here and take our power out for days, weeks, or God forbid, months. If it's months, I'm just going to move. I'm going to go to somewhere else. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a small generator, and between that generator and my power box, then I will keep, you know, gasoline on the premises, probably 5 gallons. That would repower my power box. I could really manage my power well. So these are kind of some of the things I've thought through. A person could probably skip half or all of the stuff I've said about and probably be okay, but I'm the kind of guy that I like a backup plan for my backup plan for my backup plan. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this.
Well, let's go ahead and switch gears now. In terms of your dating experiences in the Philippines over the last year compared to your dating experiences, say, 2 years prior in the United States, how has that changed?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, you're going to basically go from being a nobody who's told you're washed up and you're gross and blah, blah, blah on the dating site, you know, to being like Brad Pitt. And I researched this. I understood it, thought I had my mind wrapped around it. And, you know, it's one thing in theory, but then you get here and it is intoxicating. And so I've had to try to get my bearings on the fly with this. Now, I've done a mix over the last year. I have been a dedicated bachelor, saying I'm just going to date, I'm not going to get tied down. And I've tried relationships. Yeah, so I've had a pretty good mix of both of them. One thing I want to say is that this idea that all the women here just want you for your money and all that, it's just not true. I mean, sure, they're there. If you go to the dating sites, the majority of them have flocked to the dating sites, and that's what you find. But when I got here, I didn't really know what I wanted. I really didn't. I ended up going into a relationship right away, got into a pretty complicated situation that had a lot of liability for me, and that only lasted about 2.5 weeks, but it was intense. Then after that, I went into another relationship. It moved way too fast, and it lasted about 3 months. But here's what I want to say about this, just to put to rest a little bit this idea that, you know, Filipinos just want you for your money. Filipinas, rather, just want you for your money. This particular Filipina was 29 years old. She had had one boyfriend her whole life. He didn't make her a priority, so she broke up with him. Her family was extremely wealthy, more wealthy than my family. She had an online job making all the money she needed. She didn't need me for money. She wore clothes that cost way more than mine. She had jewelry. She had a ring that was worth $10,000 used. She did not need me for money. And so this idea that all these women just flock to you for money, it's just utter BS. It's real nice to say all that to justify whatever feelings you're having about whatever while you're sitting in the United States, not here. But if you get over here, you see that there are a lot of legitimate women with good motives. Now, in our case, that relationship didn't work out really more because of me, and this is probably why I want to be a little more private here. For my own reasons, I decided that I was not going to have more children of my own. But I came into that relationship saying I would want to have kids, and for a lot of reasons I won't get into, I decided I wasn't going to have kids. And it just didn't work out. I mean, we just have to all accept that, there's a whole lot of things that have to line up for a relationship to work, and it just didn't happen. So that one ended. So when that one ended, I was at about the 4-month mark that I'd been in the Philippines. And I decided, okay, no more relationships for a while. I just need to date a lot. And so I did. I dated a whole bunch. I was a committed bachelor. Things got pretty crazy and wild for a while. And after about 3 months of that, I was just tired of it. So then I got in another relationship. That one lasted about 4 months. And I ignored some red flags that I shouldn't have ignored. Long story short, she cheated on me. But I kind of drove her to it in some ways too, I think, because we just were not really meshing. And I just really wasn't giving her any attention. And she was really young. And she just at one point got on dating sites, and so that was over. So I got in another relationship after that. It lasted about 4 weeks. She was a good woman, but there was still an ex that was hung up on her. Now, she wasn't legally married, but she had 2 children with a Filipino man who was, I'm just going to say it, straight up narcissist, abusive, and absolutely obsessed with her after 2 years of being broken up. This guy found me somehow. He found my phone number. He found my general location of where I work, and he started contacting me. At first, he was being nice and making up stories saying, please, we miss her. Our family misses her. I knew he's lying. And then it got more aggressive where he was making threats. And long story short, I had to end it because I'm here on a tourist visa, and what I don't need is some Filipino guy, saying he's going to come here and do whatever he's going to do. I want peace in my life, and so you've got to really look at the situation, not just the woman, but the situation she's in. Has she cleared out her situation where you can come into it peacefully? And if she hasn't, detect that early and don't go into that situation. That's my advice on that.
Now, you mentioned that obviously you had a much more active social dating calendar in the Philippines as opposed to back home. I've said this many times. People don't believe me sometimes, but coming from you, say on your busiest week, how many Filipinas have you dated just in a 7-day period? What was your maximum?
10, probably 10.
10.
Yeah, that's with a full-time job.
And on a monthly basis, we're talking different, not number of dates, but different women. What would you say is your most in your busiest month dating Filipino?
Well, I'm not really into like having a date and then goodbye. I don't like one night stands. I don't like so usually for me, I'm developing some rapport and some trust before I even meet them face to face, which usually turns into like seeing them on an ongoing basis. So, but in 1 month, my busy, craziest month was probably 20 different women, and I'm disclosing my intentions. Do not tell these women that you are looking for a serious relationship and get them to trust you and do things that they wouldn't otherwise do if that's not your intention. That's just cold-hearted, and that karma is going to come back to you. So I disclose what my intentions are, and to be totally honest with you, where I'm at right now, my intentions depend on who's in front of me. Like if she's on a dating site and she's dressing really provocatively and she's got tattoos all over her and it looks like she's maybe seeing some different guys, well, if I even entertain her at all, I'm going to say to myself, is this wife material? And if she's not, I'm going to tell her right off the bat that, hey, I'm not looking for anything serious. Now, I won't say I'm not looking for anything serious with you. I'll hold back from saying that, but I will tell her that. But if I meet somebody who I look at them and I say, this could potentially be a woman that I would shut off all the dating sites for, I would shut off my dating for, dating others, then I'm going to approach approach that differently.
Now, again, here's something that, again, I have said repeatedly, and it probably just helps to hear it from somebody else. A guy who has not been to the Philippines has probably been looking at dating maybe 3 women a month, and none of them were any fun to be around.
Yeah.
When they hear me say that I've had plenty of phases or times in my life here in the last 11 years, I have had this sort of ebb and flow where I get to a point, I'm married now, but I'm talking about when I was single. I would hit times where you actually date so much and so many good-looking women, you actually get tired of it, and you just want to stay home and chill out. Have you hit that peak? Have you had that happen?
Yeah, that's what's happening today. I'm tired. I just want to kind of be by myself. And I've hit that point many times where I just kind of want to chill. Maybe I want to go out and get a coffee by myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. You definitely get to that point.
You mentioned also that, you change your mind. You're looking at not having kids. Now, would you entertain the idea of dating a Filipina single mother who doesn't have the crazy ex involved?
Yeah, I would. There's a few reasons for that. I ask some very pointed questions very early, and I'm talking before I even give them my WhatsApp number or Facebook on the dating site. This is just me. I don't know if I would even recommend, but this is what I do. I want to know, is the father involved in the kid's life? Now, you may think that's good if they are. No, it's not. I don't want that. The next question I ask is, did he sign the birth certificate? The reason for that is here in the Philippines, if that man signed the birth certificate, they have his surname, they have his last name. And in his mind, he owns those kids. That's kind of the Filipino mindset that I've seen here. And if he feels that way, I'm going to have to contend with that man, and I don't want to. And I'm telling you, it's probably 65 to 70% of the single moms that I've talked to, the guy's just gone. He's out of the picture. He would love nothing more than for some guy to come and be a father to those kids, so maybe he doesn't have to worry about ever paying. I've heard so many stories about, Filipino man, Filipina are together in a relationship and love. She gets pregnant and he just runs off. He's just gone. He doesn't want to be in those kids' life. He doesn't want to pay anything. So if he didn't sign the birth certificate, he has no right. I could even take her and her kid to the United States if I wanted, and he can't stop it. I suppose he could fight it if he really wanted to, but really he's not going to. But if he's in those kids' life, and I suppose that's good in one way, but for me it's not good. It's not a situation I'm gonna enter into. If he is a Filipino man, is involved in these kids' life and feels an ownership for his fatherhood with those kids, he's gonna tell me what I can and can't do. In his mind, like, these are my kids, these are my blood. And I'm not interested in that at all. And I've come into that situation twice now. Do not think that it's going to turn out good. It's not. So my rule is, if I'm going to get involved with a single mom, I'm going to be a father to those kids. And if you're not going to be a father to some kids of a woman you're interested in, leave her alone, because you have no business showing interest to her and being ready to love her if you're not going to be a father to those kids. And so that one, I'm going to make a blanket statement on that, because that's just some BS. If you are dealing with a woman who will leave her kids for you, that's going to bite you in the butt, because there's something wrong there. So yeah, I'm willing to be a father to some kids if I can come in without interference from another man and basically really be a father. It comes down to, what are you giving the world? So if you can come into a woman's life and some kid's life and make a difference, and these kids don't have a dad and you can be a dad, why not? So that's kind of how I view it. And then the other part that I would add to that is that I need to know those kids before I commit to the woman, before I really commit to the woman. Are these kids jerks? Are these kids going to make my life miserable? Or are these kids that are going to bring so much value into my life, that are actually going to bring purpose into my life that I never thought I could have? So to answer your question, yes, yes, for the right situation, I absolutely am open to a single mom, but I'm also open to not a single mom. Now, another thing I'll say, I tell every woman the first day I'm talking to them that I've had a vasectomy. I explain why. And I've had women say, well, my dream's to have kids. And I said, well, I can never give you kids. So if you don't want to entertain me anymore, no hard feelings, and I understand. That's fair and that's decent. And I've had women say, yeah, it is a deal killer for me. And so we wish each other the best. We bless each other, and we save each other a whole lot of heartache and disappointment.
Well, what would you say, I guess as a final question, how has this whole entire move full-time into the Philippines, how has it changed either your outlook or your philosophy on your future?
When I came here, I was thinking 2 to 5 years, really vet properly a wife and then go back to the States. I've kind of swung more to not wanting to go back to the States. Is the Philippines a better country than the United States? Well, that's kind of a silly question, I guess. It depends who you ask. It's highly opinionated. I don't think the Philippines is a better country than the United States, but I think I can carve out a better life for myself in the Philippines than I can the States. It's like every day is an adventure here. I like that I can go down the road on my motorcycle and just like see a bunch of goats running down the road and a cow, and it's just normal. And I like stuff like that. It will reset you to get out of your culture and everything you've ever known and try something new. It's a reset. I really don't want to go back. I'm from a cold area. I'm from Michigan, and I really hate the cold, so that's a factor for me too. But if I tried to live in the United States on my job, first of all, I couldn't even live in some of the warm places I wanted. Like if I wanted to go to Hawaii or Southern California, I mean, forget it. Even South Florida, if I wanted a climate like this, and I would, because I really like the heat. So I went from, trying to make ends meet if I really wanted to live the kind of life I wanted, to living like a king on half of my income. After going through divorce, I really need to build my retirement up so I can do that because I have extra income. People think I'm rich here just because they see my nice motorcycle, which was only 125,000 pesos, which is about $2,200. The Filipinos here will say, you paid cash for that? I'm like, well, yeah. And they're like, whoa.
I know one question that people will have is, and maybe we could just wrap up with this, is as a single guy dating, average, what would you say your monthly total budget is in US dollars? Everything, rent, your phone, your internet, your food, your dating expenses. If you were to average it out over the last year, how much would you say you spend as a single guy on your whole budget?
I haven't tried to be frugal, so I'm probably really spending about $1,500 a month. But if I plan things out like I did in the US, I could easily live good on $1,000 a month. I mean, I was paying for PL and PD on auto insurance in the US. So that's just the basic what you need. I was paying $120 a month in Michigan. I bought a 6-month insurance policy on my motorcycle. I'm not kidding. $4. That's not $40. That's $4. I filled up, I have 2 motorcycles. I filled up my smaller one the other day. It was $4.50 for several days of just running all over. And, one of my motorcycles, like I said, was about $2,200 brand new, cash done. The other one was $1,400. So this stuff all adds up. I would say groceries, I think they're more in the US. I think probably 60% of what it costs in the US is what it would be here. I would say restaurant, cut it in half here. And then rent. I'm renting a nice 2-bedroom house. You really would have to probably compare this to South Florida. I'm paying $290 a month, and this place would cost at least $1,300 in South Florida. At least. So there's just a whole, and then medical expenses. If you need anything done, I have an extended traveler insurance that I think was costing me $60 a month. I've never actually used it. I just pay cash. I burned my leg. I had a bunch of tests done, and I think my whole bill for everything was like $60. So it's a fraction. Yeah. One more thing I'll throw out, though. Don't come over here and try to live like an American. Side note, everybody says American if you're from the U.S. here. So if you are coming over here, try to live like a Filipino. Filipino. Have that experience. See what it's like. Then add back in what you can't live without. Like for me, I can't do the cheap packets of coffee. I'm a coffee snob. So I spend some money on coffee that I make at home. But see what you can live without, you know? Maybe you don't need, you know, your regular cable. Maybe you don't need a lot of things you said or think that you're used to. So just do the reset.
Yeah, I think you know, again, talking to a lot of different expats, the cheap one is aircon. You know, if you're living right next to the beach, for instance, when I used to live in Bacong, I only used aircon at night, and during the day I could just run fans, and I had cool ocean breeze. But if you're living up there, you know, in Baguio, areas like that, it's nice and cool. In fact, a lot of places don't even have air conditioners there. Air conditioning is usually a big one. Internet, for most of us, is a necessity. Fastest internet we can get possible. A large fridge, at least a medium-sized fridge, because the little square hotel fridge just isn't going to cut it. But everything else, yeah, you know, you can kind of pare down, you know, how much dining out you do and whether you know how to cook at home. And, you know, 1,500 is what I've always talked about for a single guy. And that's to do some traveling, do some dating, be comfortable. And again, people can always get more frugal and do that at 1,000, 1,100. Where I get worried is when guys come here and they have to get by on $700. You kind of set up failure.
Because you don't know what could happen. I mean, you could have a motorcycle accident. You could have a medical condition. You got to leave extra room.
Yeah, like in my case, I ended up with a busted appendix, and there is no negotiating on that. I had to go to the hospital. So fortunately, I had money set aside that I knew I could spend for that. And, you know, I got the entire hospital stay, doctor's prescriptions, surgery, the whole thing for just under $2,000, which is not going to happen in the United States. So anyways, I wanted to thank you for coming in and sharing your first year's experience. And I'm sure a lot of the new guys coming in will find it helpful. And any other last things you want to share?
Yeah, like, comment, and smash that like button.
All right, everybody. So we'll sign off here. And if you have any other questions that weren't discussed here, feel free to put it in the comments section and we can both get back. All right? Okay, see you guys later.